Imagine the moment. You are sitting in a radio observatory somewhere in the high desert of New Mexico, and the instruments in front of you begin to behave strangely. The signal is unmistakable, not noise, not interference from a passing satellite. Something clean, something structured, something that carries the unmistakable fingerprint of intent, numbers, patterns, a mathematical sequence that could not have been produced by any natural process known to physics. You have just received proof that we are not alone. Now stop, before the champagne, before the press conference, before the speech in front of the United Nations, before the billions of people on this planet look up at the sky and feel, for the first time in their entire history, that something out there noticed them. Stop and ask the question that nobody in the movies ever asks. When was this signal sent? Because here is the thing about the universe that the universe never bothered to explain to us in a kind and gentle way. The universe is enormous. And light, for all its reputation as the fastest thing that exists, for all its legendary status as the cosmic speed limit, the ultimate barrier, the thing that nothing in nature can surpass. Light is achingly, heartbreakingly slow when measured against the distances between stars. If that signal came from a star 40 light-years away, and 40 light-years is, in cosmic terms, practically next door, practically the house across the street, then the civilization that sent it pressed the button 40 years ago. Those beings, whatever they look like, whatever they breathe, whatever they call home, sent their message when humans on Earth were still listening to cassette tapes and watching tube televisions. If the signal came from 400 light-years away, they sent it when William Shakespeare was still alive. If it came from 4,000 light-years away, they sent it before the fall of Rome, before the birth of Christ, before the construction of the Great Pyramid at Giza. And if it came from 40,000 light-years away, which is still well within the borders of our own galaxy, still well within the Milky Way, still local, they sent it when our ancestors were painting horses on the walls of caves in what we now call France. So here is the question that actually matters. Here is the question that should make every scientist, every philosopher, every ordinary human being sit very still and feel something shifting underneath them. If we receive a signal today, are its senders still alive? The honest answer, based on everything we know about physics and time and the terrifying size of the cosmos, is this: probably not. Probably not. And this is not science fiction. This is not speculation. This is geometry. This is arithmetic. This is the cold, indifferent mathematics of a universe that operates according to its own rules. And those rules do not care about our desire to communicate, our longing to connect, our desperate species-wide need to know that we are not the only ones thinking thoughts in the dark. The moment we truly realize this, feel it in the bones rather than simply acknowledge it in the mind, everything we thought we knew about contact, about communication, about the search for extraterrestrial intelligence collapses like a building whose foundations were made of assumptions. Radio signals, we discover, are not messages. They are artifacts. They are not communication. They are archaeology. And the universe, it turns out, is less like a neighborhood where you might one day wave to your neighbor across the street, and more like a graveyard so vast that the tombstones have not yet received the light to tell us they are tombstones. Let us talk about distance, and let us not talk about it the way astronomy textbooks talk about it, because that approach produces a very specific and thoroughly useless cognitive response in human beings. The textbook says the nearest star to our sun is Proxima Centauri at 4.2 light-years. The human brain hears this and says, "That is a number, I understand numbers," and then moves on, completely unaffected, because 4.2 light-years means nothing to the part of us that actually processes meaning. So let us try something different. Make the sun the size of a grapefruit on your kitchen table. On that scale, the Earth is a pinhead orbiting it at roughly 8 meters, the length of a small living room. And on that same scale, Proxima Centauri is another grapefruit sitting in Los Angeles, 2,200 kilometers away if you are in New York. The signal from that grapefruit, traveling at the speed of light, takes 4.2 years to reach your kitchen. 4 years. And that is the closest star. Now extend your imagination to the galaxy. The Milky Way is a disk of stars roughly 100,000 light-years across. If we could scale it down so that 1 light-year was the length of your hand, the galaxy would stretch for about 30 kilometers in every direction. It would fill an entire city. You, standing at the center, would be a speck so small that no instrument you can imagine could detect you. Most of the stars in the Milky Way are tens of thousands of light-years from Earth. Most of the stars in the Milky Way, if they sent a radio signal in the direction of Earth at this very moment, would be sending a message that will not arrive until civilizations that do not yet exist receive it with technologies that have not yet been invented. Think about ancient Rome sending a letter to a trading partner in what is now China. The letter would take months. The person who wrote it might never receive a reply in their lifetime. There was a kind of epistolary courage required, a willingness to invest in communication whose return was not guaranteed within a human lifespan. Now imagine that the letter takes 5,000 years. Imagine that you write the letter today. A reply, if one comes, arrives not in your lifetime, not in your grandchildren's lifetime, not in the lifetime of any civilization that currently exists on Earth. 5,000 years ago, writing had only recently been invented. The oldest surviving written texts are tax records from Mesopotamia. Humanity had not yet built a single pyramid. In 5,000 years, what will Earth look like? Who will receive the reply? Will there be anyone left to receive it? This is not a poetic exaggeration for dramatic effect. This is the actual mathematical reality of communication between civilizations that exist in different locations within this galaxy. To send a message and receive a reply is not a conversation. It is more like carving your thoughts into stone and hoping that someone who walks past in 10,000 years speaks your language and cares about what you wrote. And yet we have been broadcasting radio signals into space for over 100 years. Not intentionally, not in the form of some organized interstellar message, but as a byproduct of our civilization's love affair with wireless communication, our television broadcasts, our radar systems, our radio programs. For over a century, an expanding bubble of electromagnetic radiation has been moving outward from Earth at the speed of light, growing larger every year, carrying within it the accidental record of our civilization. The first artificial radio signals from Earth have now traveled approximately 100 light-years from our planet. That sounds like a lot. Until you realize that 100 light-years within the context of the Milky Way is a sphere so small that if you were looking at a map of the galaxy from above, you would need a magnifying glass to find it. Less than 0.1% of the galaxy lies within that sphere. We have whispered into an ocean, and our whisper has not yet reached the shoreline of the next bay. Of the approximately 400 billion stars in the Milky Way, roughly 10,000 lie within 100 light-years. 10,000 out of 400 billion. We have been broadcasting for a century, and our signals have reached not even the immediate neighborhood of our stellar address. This is the first layer of the problem. But it is not even the most interesting layer. The most interesting layer is what happens when we consider not just the size of the galaxy in space, but the size of the galaxy in time. Here is where the conversation stops feeling like astronomy and starts feeling like something else, something closer to philosophy, something with the texture of dread. The speed of light is 300,000 kilometers per second. Nothing with mass can reach this speed. Nothing with mass can even approach it without requiring infinite energy. This is not an engineering limitation that we will someday overcome with better technology. This is a feature of the universe at the deepest structural level. It is woven into the equations that describe space and time themselves. Einstein did not discover a rule that physicists wrote down. He discovered a constraint that reality imposed on itself at the moment of its birth. The speed of light is not merely the speed of light, it is the speed of causality. Causality is the relationship between cause and effect. It is the reason the future happens after the past, the reason you cannot receive a phone call before it is made. Cause and effect are connected by information, and information cannot travel faster than light. Right now, as you watch this, something might be happening at the center of our galaxy. An explosion, a collision, a signal, an extinction, a birth. The galactic center is approximately 26,000 light-years away. Whatever is happening there right now, and something is always happening there because the universe is not a quiet place, we will not know about it for 26,000 years. We cannot know about it for 26,000 years. We cannot even know that it has happened for 26,000 years. 26,000 years ago, modern humans had just arrived in Europe. The Neanderthals were still alive. There were no cities, there was no writing, there were no nations, no religions, no philosophies. There were small groups of human beings wearing animal skins, hunting with stone tools, and occasionally painting extraordinary images on the walls of underground caves. If a civilization at the center of the galaxy broadcast a signal 26,000 years ago in the direction of the star we now call the Sun, that signal is arriving at Earth right now, today, at this moment, and the civilization that sent it has had 26,000 years to do whatever civilizations do in 26,000 years. They might be unimaginably advanced. They might be spread across dozens of star systems. They might have solved problems we cannot even formulate. Or they might be gone. They might have been gone for 20,000 years when their signal finally reaches us. And here is the truly unsettling thing. The thing that starts to feel less like a physics problem and more like a ghost story. We would have no way to know. We receive the signal. We decode it. We learn everything they chose to tell us about themselves. We press send on our reply, and we wait 26,000 years for our reply to reach them. Another 26,000 years for their response to return. 52,000 years of waiting. This is not communication. This is something else. Something we do not have a word for, because we have never experienced it. Because no species in the history of this planet has ever faced this problem before. But there is a second, even darker dimension to the lightspeed prison. It does not just delay communication between civilizations. It can eliminate them entirely before communication becomes possible. The universe is approximately 13.8 billion years old. Stars have been forming and dying for almost all of that time. Planets have been coalescing around those stars. If life arises wherever conditions permit, then there may have been civilizations in this galaxy billions of years before we existed. Civilizations so ancient that they make our current technological era look like the first second of recorded history. Where are they? Where are the signals from civilizations that had a billion-year head start? The silence is not just a communication gap. The silence is a message. The silence is the anomaly. The thing that does not fit is sometimes the most important thing of all. This is the Fermi Paradox. And it does not get less disturbing the longer you stare at it. Enrico Fermi, the physicist who helped build the first nuclear reactor and who was one of the most precise and unsentimental scientific minds of the 20th century, once reportedly asked, over lunch, a question that has haunted physics and philosophy ever since. Where is everybody? He was talking about extraterrestrial civilizations. The galaxy is old. Life should have had enormous amounts of time to emerge, evolve, develop technology, and spread. But we see nothing. We hear nothing. The sky is silent. The stars, as far as we can tell from our century of radio astronomy, are simply stars. Where is everybody? There is no shortage of attempts to answer that question. The spectrum of hypotheses runs from the reassuringly mundane to the deeply disturbing, from possibilities that require only minor revision of our assumptions to possibilities that require us to fundamentally reconsider our place in the cosmos. The most conservative hypothesis is simply that we are not looking in the right way, or that we have not been looking long enough. We have been conducting systematic searches for roughly 60 years, which is an eye blink in cosmic time. Our technology has enormous limitations. We have mostly been listening for radio signals because that is what we know how to do. But an advanced civilization might communicate in ways we cannot yet detect, using technologies that do not appear in any of our physics textbooks. Maybe the signals are there and we simply lack the instruments. The second hypothesis is that life is rarer than we assume, that the emergence of life from chemistry is not an inevitable outcome of the right conditions, but an extraordinarily unlikely accident. The universe may have run its chemistry experiment billions of times, on billions of worlds, and it only worked once, on Earth. The third hypothesis is more unsettling. Life is common, intelligent life is less common, technological civilization is rarer still, and long-lasting technological civilization is vanishingly rare. The famous Drake equation includes a term called L, the average lifespan of a communicating civilization. If civilizations tend to destroy themselves or simply switch off their radio transmitters after a few centuries, the number of active civilizations at any given moment could be very small. Here is where the speed of light intersects with the question in a way that should make you sit very still. Imagine a galaxy with a long history of intelligent civilizations, each one burning brightly for a few centuries or a few millennia, broadcasting its existence into the cosmos, and then going dark. Each one, at the moment it falls silent, leaves a sphere of radio signals still expanding outward at the speed of light. The voice, still traveling. The speaker, gone. Now imagine Earth in that galaxy, relatively late to the party. Many of those civilizations arose and fell millions of years ago. Their expanding spheres of signal have already swept through our neighborhood. The voices of the dead are already here, carrying in them the mathematical residue of minds that ceased to exist before our solar system formed. We would not recognize them. We might be saturated in them, swimming in the broadcasts of 1,000 extinct civilizations, and our instruments would tell us random noise. The universe might be full of past voices, dead broadcasts, fossil signals from beings that ceased to exist before the first fish crawled out of the Earth's oceans. A fourth hypothesis is considerably darker. It is called the Great Filter. Between the formation of a rocky planet around a suitable star and the emergence of a technological civilization capable of broadcasting its existence into the cosmos, there is an enormous number of steps. Life must arise from chemistry. That life must evolve complexity. That complexity must produce multicellular organisms. Those organisms must develop nervous systems. Those nervous systems must produce intelligence. That intelligence must develop technology. That technology must survive long enough to reach interstellar communication capability. Each of these steps might be individually unlikely, or one might be so extraordinarily unlikely that it acts as a filter, dramatically reducing the number of civilizations that make it all the way through. The great filter hypothesis has two basic flavors, and the difference between them is profoundly important for our own survival as a species. Flavor 1. The great filter is behind us. The hardest step was something in the past. Maybe the origin of life itself. Maybe the emergence of complex eukaryotic cells. Maybe the emergence of large brains. Whatever it was, we got through it. The universe ahead of us is open. Flavor 2. The great filter is ahead of us. The easy part was getting to where we are. Every civilization that reached our level of technology went on to destroy itself, or be destroyed, or transform into something no longer detectable. Nuclear war, engineered pandemics, climate collapse, artificial intelligence that ceased to reflect its creator's values. Some unknown catastrophe we have not yet invented and cannot imagine. If this flavor is correct, then the silence of the galaxy is not a puzzle about communication technology. It is a warning. It is the universe sending us the most important message it has ever sent, in the most difficult language imaginable, the language of absence. There is also the dark forest hypothesis. The galaxy is not empty. It is full of civilizations. But those civilizations are silent because they have learned that broadcasting is dangerous. Any civilization sophisticated enough to detect your signal is sophisticated enough to threaten your existence. And the only rational response to uncertainty about another civilization's intentions is to eliminate the threat before it eliminates you. The galaxy is a dark forest, full of hunters moving in silence, and any civilization that makes noise reveals itself. If this hypothesis is true, we have already made noise. We have been broadcasting our position and our nature for over 100 years. The bubble of our electromagnetic history is already 90 light-years in radius. Any civilization within that radius has already, in principle, received evidence of our existence. That means we have already started a clock we cannot stop. But let us return to the beginning, to the signal, to the moment at the radio observatory when the instruments start misbehaving in the best possible way. Let us say we receive it, a clear signal. Unmistakable origin. We determine the source star. We calculate the distance. We do the arithmetic. The signal is 5,000 years old. The civilization that sent it did so when our ancestors were building the first cities in the valleys of Mesopotamia, when they were first inventing writing, when they were first organizing themselves into something that could be called, by the most generous definition, a civilization. What do we do with this? We know something extraordinary has existed. We know intelligence arose elsewhere. We know we are not alone in the most fundamental sense of that phrase. But we know nothing about what happened next. We know nothing about whether they survived. We know nothing about whether the act of reaching out into the void was the last thing they ever did, or the first chapter of an incomprehensible story that is still being written somewhere 5,000 light-years away. And if we respond, our reply will not arrive for 5,000 years. Who responds? Not us. Not any person alive today. Not any country that currently exists. Not any language that anyone currently speaks. Whoever receives our reply, if anyone does, will be as alien to us as we are to the people of ancient Mesopotamia. More alien, because 5,000 years of development compounds in ways that our imagination, strapped to a single human lifetime, cannot adequately model. We are not having a conversation. We are leaving a message in a bottle and throwing it into an ocean that has no other shore. Or rather, an ocean whose other shore exists at a distance so great that the very concept of shore loses its meaning before you get there. There is a library metaphor that captures something that pure physics cannot. Imagine a vast library, the largest ever built, containing every book, every document, every recording, every artifact from a civilization that no longer exists. The civilization built this library as their final act, their last gift to the cosmos, and then they vanished. And the library exists, perfectly preserved, waiting. But the library is on the other side of the galaxy, and the light carrying the image of that library has been traveling toward us for 50,000 years. It has not arrived yet. It will not arrive for another 20,000 years. And when it arrives, it will be an image of the library as it was 70,000 years ago, not as it is now, if indeed it is anything at all. We cannot visit the library. We cannot even see it. We know, or we suspect, or we hypothesize that it exists, but we cannot read it. We cannot access it. We cannot benefit from it in any timeline that means anything to any human being who has ever lived or will live. This is not a failure of our technology. This is the geometry of the universe speaking to us in the only voice it has, which is the voice of silence. And now consider this. We ourselves, right now, at this moment, are that library to some civilization we cannot conceive of, on some planet we cannot see, around some star we may not even have named yet. Our 100 years of radio signals are already 40 to 90 light years away, carrying with them our wars and our music and our game shows and our military radar and our love stories and our political speeches and our scientific discoveries and our tragedies and every fragment of human civilization that happened to fall within the frequency range of our electromagnetic leakage. Somewhere, 40 to 90 light years away, beings we have never imagined are receiving the earliest part of that signal. Or perhaps there is nobody there. Or perhaps somebody is there and they have decided not to respond, for reasons we would not understand even if they explain them in a language we could translate. We do not know. We cannot know. And here is what I want you to sit with, not as an intellectual puzzle, but as a felt reality. As something that is actually true about the universe you live in, the universe your children will live in, the universe that will continue to exist long after every living thing currently on Earth is gone. The universe does not operate at human speed. It does not adjust its time scale to accommodate our lifetimes. It does not slow down so that we can have conversations with it on our own terms. It proceeds at the pace dictated by physics, by the finite speed of light, by the vast distances between stars, by the deep time of cosmic history. And in that framework, civilizations are not neighbors who can wave to each other across a fence. They are, at best, archaeologists of each other, students of each other's past, analysts of each other's history, recipients of each other's fossil signals, readers of records left by minds that may no longer exist. We may already be surrounded by the signals of civilizations that have perished, not in the metaphorical sense, literally. The electromagnetic records of civilizations that arose and fell millions of years ago might be washing over Earth right now, too diluted and too ancient for our instruments to recognize. The universe might be saturated with the cosmic archaeology of lost minds, and we might lack the tools and the language and the conceptual framework to read what has been written in the wavelengths of light all around us. We have been looking for signals, for proof of contact, for the bright, clear, unmistakable transmission that says, "Here we are real, you are not alone." And that signal may be there, it may be everywhere, but it may be written in a language so old, carried on frequencies so unexpected, structured according to conventions so foreign to everything we have ever imagined communication to be, that we sit in the middle of it and call it silence. The way a person who has never learned to read might sit in the middle of a library and call it just a room full of objects. The speed of light is not just a physical constraint, it is a philosophical statement. It says, the universe is not designed for connection. It is not arranged to make it easy for minds to find each other. It is not structured around the desire for company that seems so fundamental to what we are. It is structured around something else, around the expansion of space, the cooling of stars, the slow approach of a heat death that will eventually reduce everything to an undifferentiated silence more complete than anything we can imagine. And in between the birth of the universe and its death, there are perhaps billions of moments of awareness. Billions of islands of consciousness, each surrounded by an ocean of distance that light itself takes millennia to cross, each one broadcasting into a void that is indifferent to the fact that it is broadcasting, each one discovering, if it is capable of the discovery, that it is structurally and geometrically impossible to truly connect with any of the others in any time frame that the awareness in question is able to experience. This is not tragedy in the way that human tragedy is shaped. It does not have a villain. It does not have a cruel God who could have arranged things differently and chose not to. It is simply the shape of reality, the shape of a universe that is vast and old and proceeding according to laws established at a moment so far in the past that every mind capable of observing those laws is only now, only barely, only recently, beginning to understand that those laws exist. If we receive a signal tomorrow, a real signal, confirmed, unambiguous, the thing that SETI researchers have been preparing for since the 1960s, the most important thing we will have learned is not that intelligence exists elsewhere. The most important thing we will have learned is that we are receiving a message from the past, a message from a civilization that sent it when they were alive, and may or may not still be alive, and that we cannot know whether they are alive, and that we cannot ask them, and that even if we ask them, we will not receive an answer within any time frame that connects to the civilization we are today. We will have learned that we are not communicators but archaeologists, not conversationalists but researchers, not recipients of news but readers of history, and maybe that is enough. Maybe the knowledge that intelligence arose somewhere else, even very long ago, even without any possibility of true exchange, is enough to change how we see ourselves in this universe. Because the alternative is what we have right now, which is silence, which is a universe that speaks in light and waits for the speed of that light to carry its messages across distances that mock the word distance, which is a cosmos populated, for all we know, with 1 billion libraries none of us will ever enter, 1 billion broadcasts none of us will ever decode, 1 billion minds none of us will ever touch. We are not alone, perhaps, but alone is not the word that captures the actual situation. The actual situation is stranger than alone, stranger than together. It is something in between, something for which our languages do not yet have a word. Something that exists in the space between the moment a signal is sent and the moment it arrives, between the life of the civilization that created it and whatever comes after, between the question and the answer that will not come for 10,000 years. The universe is full of voices, but they are voices from the past. They are voices of the possibly dead, speaking across distances that make the word distance absurd, carried by light that moves at what physics calls the maximum possible speed and what civilization calls unbearably slow. We may be surrounded by ghosts, not the ghosts of fantasy and folklore, entities trapped between life and death, repeating the patterns of their past. Real ghosts, mathematical ghosts, the electromagnetic residue of minds that were once as alive and aware and curious and afraid and lonely as we are, broadcasting their existence into a cosmos that was indifferent to the fact that they were broadcasting. Broadcasting, perhaps, in the hope that somewhere, somewhen, a civilization would arise that was capable of recognizing the signal for what it was, not communication, but proof that it happened, that minds formed from the dust of exploding stars. That awareness arose in this universe and looked up at the sky and felt what we feel when we look up at the sky. That vertiginous combination of wonder and terror and the desire to know whether someone, anywhere, is looking back. The answer to that desire may already be traveling toward us, at the speed of light, from a civilization that lived and died before our planet existed. And when it arrives, we may not have the instruments to hear it, or the wisdom to understand it, or the patience to wait for what comes next. But it is coming, and that perhaps is the most extraordinary fact in all of science. Not that we might receive a signal, but that a signal, once sent, continues forever. The electromagnetic record of a civilization's existence propagates outward at the speed of light, long after the civilization itself has ended, long after its star has cooled, long after the planet it called home has been swallowed by its dying sun. Every signal ever sent is still traveling. Every broadcast ever made is still out there. Everything we have ever transmitted into space, every radar pulse, every television signal, every radio broadcast is still moving, still expanding, still carrying within it the record of who we were at the moment we sent it. We will die. Our civilization will end one way or another, on some time scale that is short relative to the age of the universe. But our signals will continue. For millions of years, our signals will continue expanding outward from this pale blue point in space. Eventually, long after the last human being has ceased to exist, our signals will reach stars we have not yet cataloged, planets we have not yet named, minds we cannot begin to imagine. And those minds, if they are capable of receiving and decoding what we sent, will know that once, in this corner of the galaxy, around a small yellow star, there were beings who asked questions. Who built instruments to listen for answers? Who felt the loneliness of the universe and decided nonetheless to shout into it? We are not the first to shout. We may not be the last. But we are shouting now. And the universe is old enough and dark enough and silent enough that every shout matters, even the ones that will never be heard in time.